Hi, I'm John Larsen, President of Marathon Ventures, Inc. We at Marathon are on an ongoing quest to improve our understanding of the source of the food and drink products that we supply our customers. As a food and beverage company, our corporate philosophy is eat, drink, share. While the first two components are obvious, the share component in this instance refers to our desire to share our knowledge of the food sources with our customers. While many people have an appreciation for a good cup of coffee, few people realize that coffee is the second largest traded commodity in the world. Even fewer have a true understanding of all the steps involved in the journey of coffee from fruit to cup. While technically coffee is believed to be native to Africa, today it is grown all over the world in an area around the equator approximately bounded by the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. The coffees from each area tend to have unique attributes based on the altitude, light, warmth, moisture, and type of soil. The highest quality, most desirable coffees known as specialty coffee are typically grown at high altitude in volcanic soils and under the canopy of native foliage. Having visited the coffee farmers in these areas, we have a heightened sense of appreciation for all that is required to grow, selectively harvest, process, and export the highest quality of coffees available. The process I am about to describe is based on our experiences in Central America, but representative of coffee growing around the world. Specialty coffee is typically grown by many small family-owned farms that join together to form co-ops. The land and coffee plants are handed down from generation to generation. The areas where coffee is grown tend to be very rural in nature, located in high-altitude regions that are not easily accessible via well-maintained roads. The coffee plants themselves are actually trees and can bear fruit for over 100 years with proper care and maintenance. New seedlings can start bearing fruit within 3 years. The main coffee season begins during the month of June with bright white, fragrant blossoms. While coffee can bloom at any time of the year on the same plant, most of the coffee will bloom at this time. After bloom, the coffee cherry, as it is referred, will take about 6 months to fully develop into ripened fruit. The coffee bean is actually at the center of the fruit, very similar to an actual cherry pit. Coffee harvest typically begins in January and runs through March. The harvest process consists of workers, typically family members or migrant workers, selectively picking fully ripened fruit into a basket fastened around their waist. This allows the workers to use both hands for picking and maintain their balance, as the coffee can be located on some very treacherous hillsides. While the fully ripened cherries are typically a deep red, burgundy in color, some varieties actually ripen to a lush golden yellow. Given the fruit will not all ripen at the same time, the coffee is picked in waves that may require 6 or more passes over the course of the harvest season to ensure peak freshness and enhanced flavor. Even small amounts of or over-ripened fruit can adversely affect the flavor of the coffee. A worker can pick approximately 100 to 200 pounds of coffee on average per day. The fruit is consolidated into reusable burlap or nylon bags and transported to the nearest wet mill by horse or mule, or sometimes pickup truck for processing. The wet mills are usually shared and run by a group of farmers that have formed a co-op. At the mill, the fruit is first weighed before processing, as this will form the basis for payment to the workers. Fruit needs to be processed the same day as picking to maximize freshness. Otherwise, fruit will begin to ferment, which can adversely affect flavor. The first step in processing is to float the coffee to separate out the defective and unripened coffee, which will actually float on the surface. This coffee will still be processed, but will be set aside and used as a lower grade coffee. After floating, the coffee goes through a depulping process to remove the fruit from the coffee bean. This is accomplished by sending the fruit through rollers that press the fruit and separate the flesh of the fruit from the bean. The removed fruit flesh is known as pulp and is commonly composted and used as fertilizer for the coffee trees. At this point, the coffee bean is still surrounded by a layer of mucilage that must be removed before drying. This can be accomplished through a secondary process of mechanically assisted scrubbing, as seen in this footage, or a process known as fermentation that relies on natural enzymes to remove this layer over a 24 to 36 hour period. Next, the coffee beans are ready to be dried, which is usually achieved by spreading the beans out on concrete patios to dry naturally under the sun. The beans need to be turned several times a day and may take up to a week to fully dry using this process. Sometimes elevated drying beds are used for drying, which allow air to flow under the beans and reduce the need for turning of the product. During peak harvest, when patio space is in short supply or the coffee is not fully dried, gas-fired ovens are used to finish this process. The coffee beans still have a thin layer of parchment surrounding the bean known as pergamino. This layer is commonly left on the beans as they are bagged and warehoused prior to being transported to a dry mill for further processing. The layer of parchment will protect the bean and keep it fresh as it awaits further processing. Once the products arrive at the dry mill, parchment and any other foreign debris are removed using a dehulling process. After dehulling, the coffee is sorted by size of bean using a screening process as well as by density using a gravity table. At each step in the dry mill process, samples are being taken and analyzed for defects to assess the quality of the coffee being processed. This process is referred to as cupping and will involve assessing the various attributes such as acidity, body, aroma, and flavor. This process will help determine how the coffee will be graded as it is ready for export. As the single largest commodity in the world behind oil, coffee may be traded and transferred multiple times by middlemen in the supply chain, as it is exported from country of origin and imported and warehoused in country of use. As it pertains to the U.S., most coffees are imported via seaports and warehoused throughout the country. At Marathon Ventures, we maintain our own coffee warehouse and strive to minimize the number of middlemen involved in between our organization and the coffee producers. The next step on the journey of coffee from fruit to cup is the roasting process. This, along with how the fruit is processed immediately after it is harvested, make up the most critical steps in determining the quality of the coffee. Coffee is air roasted at temperatures ranging from 400 to 475 degrees Fahrenheit. Once the roaster is brought up to the desired temperature, the green coffee is weighed and dumped into the roaster. The master roaster is responsible for monitoring all aspects of the roasting process to ensure an optimum roast. Samples are taken and observed throughout the roasting process to determine the precise moment that the roast is complete, at which time the batch of coffee is dumped into the cooling bin to prevent the coffee from roasting any further. The cooling bin constantly turns the coffee to promote cooling as air is pulled across the coffee to bring the roasted coffee beans to room temperature. Samples from the batch in both a whole bean and ground state are run through computerized equipment to ensure the darkness of the roast is within designated guidelines. The coffee beans will lose approximately 17 to 20% of their weight as a result of the roasting process. The coffee will naturally emit CO2 or off gas after roasting. It is imperative to package the coffee within a short period of time to limit exposure to oxygen and protect freshness. Some coffees are flavored and/or ground just prior to packaging. For flavored coffee, alcohol-based flavoring syrup is prepared and poured over the whole bean coffee as it churns in a large ribbon blender. This allows the coffee bean to consistently absorb the flavoring, which will be released at the time the coffee is brewed. If coffee is going to be ground before packaging, the product is sent through large granulation machines that press and break the coffee beans between moving rollers. Varying levels of grind can be achieved by adjusting the distance between the granulating rollers. The coffee is now conveyed to the packaging equipment. This equipment will take large rolls of film and wrap them around a former to create the desired package for proper storage of the coffee as it continues its journey to the consumer. This film is designed with superior barrier characteristics to keep out oxygen and sunlight, which can degrade the quality of the coffee. Given the coffee has been freshly roasted, it will continue to off-gas while in the package. For this reason, a unique one-way valve is integrated into each package that will allow the resulting gases from this process to escape the packaging without letting any harmful oxygen into the package. As an additional safety measure to protect the coffee from overexposure to oxygen, Each bag is flushed with a burst of inert nitrogen to remove the oxygen content just prior to sealing the bag. After adding convenient reclosable features to the bags, the coffee is packed into retail-friendly cases for distribution to and merchandising on the store shelves. The coffee is now ready to be selected for purchase by the consumer. Many different varieties are available depending on the consumer's preference for darkness of roast, flavored versus non-flavored, country of origin, caffeinated or decaffeinated, whole bean or ground, and packaging size. Consumers commonly squeeze the bag of coffee to experience the unique aromas that serve as key indicators of how the coffee will taste. Once this selection is made, there's only one step remaining prior to enjoying that highly anticipated cup of coffee: brewing. There are many ways to brew your coffee, including the use of a percolator, as seen here, or a French press in which coffee grounds steep in hot water for about 4 minutes before being filtered and poured. Many coffee shops use espresso machines, which require finely ground coffees to be compressed into discs. The espresso must then be brewed, and care must be taken to watch that it does not brew too quickly or slowly, in which case the espresso will not taste right and a new shot will have to be prepared. But this one turned out just right. By far the most common way to prepare coffee is with the use of an auto drip system. Regardless of approach, the quality of the water, level of grind, and amount of coffee used are key variables in perfecting the brewing process to satisfy your individual taste preferences. To find out more about Marathon Ventures coffees and other products, please browse our website at www.marathonventuresinc.com or www.pearsgourmet.com.